just outside the Imperial Palace, previewing Newcastle United's game tonight against Urawa Reds, and I think really Newcastle now well settled into Tokyo. They've been here a couple of days. They seem to be really enjoying it. It's hard not to enjoy it when the weather's as nice as it is here. It is extremely hot. I know Newcastle fans who have travelled over being told to keep drinking water because it's absolutely scorching here. It must be about 35 degrees today, and it won't get that much cooler later on. So yeah, for Newcastle fans, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to come to Tokyo to see their team in action, and they're going to be going to one of the most iconic stadiums in Japan later on. We're going to be bringing you more footage of that later, of course, but just a couple of reflections on the press conference yesterday. Full focus from Eddie Howe, as you'll have now all seen the quotes from Eddie on saying how committed he is to Newcastle. Sort of shot down the England talk. He was asked about it again. It was the overseas media who were asking that question, but a firm answer from Eddie Howe, totally focused on the job in hand. And I think really that's probably the best thing that you're going to hear on this trip for the Newcastle fans, because they do seem right behind them. I was at the fan event yesterday, the Adidas event in the centre of Tokyo, when the new kit was unveiled, and I spoke to a lot of fans, and you know, they're right behind Eddie Howe. They really believe in what he's doing. I think a lot of sort of fans of the older generation who experienced the Keegan thing, they want to believe that Eddie Howe can do something similar, and you know, in his first couple of years at Newcastle, he probably has done something. I mean, just missing out on Champions League last year, but perhaps not qualifying for Europe might not be the worst thing in the world for Newcastle this season. Certainly didn't do Kevin Keegan any harm in 1996 when Newcastle just missed out on the title. And yeah, and another little link to the Keegan era is the fact that it's 28 years since Alan Shearer signed for Newcastle United. And I asked Eddie Howe about that in the press conference yesterday. I said, do you think they'll ever be in a position where they can, you know, get another blockbuster like Alan Shearer coming in, breaking a world record? Obviously the finances have changed. He was quick to acknowledge that, but he says, one, he hopes that can be done, and two, he hopes that he's the manager when it is. So a real sort of forward-thinking statement from Eddie Howe there. And I think really now for Newcastle, they know they need to get signings through the door, and I think they are closing in. I think by the time that first game comes around, I think there'll be a player, at least one player through the door, hopefully two, but let's wait and see. Eddie Howe's going to try and keep us updated as much as possible on this trip. Well, we're in place in Satama. It's the weather. It looks like it's taking a turn for the worse. Looks like it's going to absolutely chuck down. We've had thunder and lightning before the kick-off. So, unfortunately, Newcastle fans behind the goal do look like they're going to get soaked potentially, and the game's going to be played in potentially monsoon conditions. It's been absolutely red hot here. It's still red hot now, but as can be the case with this climate, it's when it rains, and I think we're about to experience it. So Newcastle players just having a look down there on the pitch right now, but by the time this game kicks off, it could be very different. Ultimately, for Eddie Howe, we just want to get through the game with no injuries. He said yesterday in the press conference that he's building up slowly to his strongest team. He said that Bruno will play in one of the games on this trip. We'll have to wait and see if it's this one. But I think for Eddie Howe, it's just a case of pushing on now, getting Newcastle through the tour, and hopefully impressing the travelling fans, Japanese fans behind the goal, who have brought plenty of banners. I've got a couple of pictures on the live blog right now, so if you want to have a look at that, please do. But ultimately for Newcastle, they're looking to get this tour off to a winning start here against Urawa Red Diamonds. Well, what a dramatic first half. Newcastle United winning here 2-1 in Japan, and yeah, that first half had pretty much everything you could want. It was almost like a Premier League game in some ways. Obviously Newcastle going ahead through Isak very early on, but the home side Urawa taking the game to Newcastle, coming back into it at 1-1, an audacious back heel, and then it was starting to get a bit real for Newcastle because they conceded a penalty. Great save by Nick Pope, and he's made another couple of good stops as well in the game. But ultimately, at 1-1, there was no concern. Newcastle recomposed themselves, and by the time that half-time whistle went, they were 2-1 up. A good run again from Willock, who's had a very good first half, and then he's prodded it to Murphy, who slammed home 2-1 on the stroke half-time. Newcastle ahead here and hoping to continue the pre-season in great form. Well, we're just leaving the stadium now, and Newcastle United pulled off a very big performance there tonight. I know it was against a team in the middle of the J League, but still I thought the testing conditions, it's still sweltering out here right now. Newcastle got through it. They decided to make some changes in the second half, which was probably always going to be planned, but I think ultimately for Eddie Howe to win the game, get the players' confidence boosted, there was a lot to be said for that. And I think really, when you look at the way the game started, Joe Willock played a great ball through for Alexander Isak, who sort of weaved through the defence, took a touch and then slammed it in the corner, just set the tone for the game perfectly. Newcastle were 1-0 up and in full control, and then it just appeared that, you know, the home side, you know, they did win a big game, and you know, they levelled with an audacious equaliser back heel off the post, and then they were handed the chance to take the lead with a penalty, which Nick Pope made an unbelievable save. So that just shows you the confidence flying around the squad at the minute for Newcastle, that even in those pressure point situations, Nick Pope is able to pull something like that out of the bag, guessing the right way and making a fantastic stop, and it just kept Newcastle in it. They played it like a Premier League game. That's the truth of the matter. And they regained control before the break, with Joe Willock again making a fantastic run down the left and then throwing it to Murphy, who just picked his spot, put Newcastle United 2-1 up, and that, you know, was no more than Newcastle probably deserved, because he'd weathered the storm on and off the pitch, because before the game it was thundering and lightning and it was just an absolute monsoon outside. I went outside to take a look around the fan park, and it was absolutely chucking down, and Newcastle fans were getting a little bit soaked. And then the second half, I think Eddie Howe made some sensible changes. He took Longstaff and Willock off, and, you know, give some of the youngsters an opportunity. Almiron got his chance as well, but second half really Newcastle were just in full control from very early on. One of the substitutes, Jamie Miley, playing in Murphy, who curled home, and then Lewis Hall hit one from distance not too long after, which deflected past the keeper and, you know, made it 4-1, and very, very comfortable for Newcastle. And I think when they look back on the video of this one, they'll be pleased with a lot of aspects of it. No injuries as well, another big plus point. But I think now we're looking towards that second friendly on Saturday. Again, J League opposition, again another test, again in front of the Japanese fan base, and another opportunity to, you know, spread the word for Newcastle United. And I think that's going to be key moving forward. They've done pretty much the global tour in the last 12 months. They've been to America, they've been to Australia, and now they've been here, and everywhere they've gone they've been well received. And, you know, picking up big results like this is always important, because it means that you know, it leaves a memory in the head of, you know, certainly the young fans, and maybe the fans seeing Newcastle for the first time. So there's lots of positives to take from it. So we're finally back from the stadium. We did have to make a real rush for it to get the last train, otherwise we would have been stranded miles away from the centre of Tokyo. So the second half of this coming from central Tokyo, and time to reflect on what was said. I think in the first half I spoke about the game, the performance, all the things that would have pleased Eddie Howe, all the things that have made this a successful pre-season on the field, at least so far. You know, three wins, one in Germany against lower league opposition, one against championship opposition in Hull, and now J League opposition, who were quite up for it tonight. They were up for the fight. They wanted to cause a big shock, but they weren't able to do so, because quite simply Newcastle was just too good for them. The way they were popping the ball around and creating chances and making it, just the intensity felt like it was back. Remember Eddie Howe saying intensity is our identity in his first season at the club, first 2 seasons. That's what feels like is back around the place. That was missing last year, certainly the second half of the season. And I'm getting that vibe from the players. They all seem hungry, focused, and anybody who doubted Eddie Howe towards the end of last season, will probably see Newcastle get off to a flying start this time around, because the qualities that led them to where they went in 22-23 are going to, be a big impact in the coming season. But the politics off the field, it does still feel like there is something there, and it is going to take time for things to be done. Although we did speak to Eddie Howe after the press conference, and basically it was a case of he hopes something's going to get done with transfers. He hopes that this can be a pivotal kind of week. I asked him about, had the teething problems died down between himself and the new football people coming in, and he basically said, look, I think I've commented enough about it. He does not want to reopen that discussion. That's what we've fathomed on this trip. And I think for him, he always knew that interview he'd done in Germany was going to be received in a certain way, and it certainly was. But now I think he wants to move on from that. I think we've seen that on Tuesday. I still thought that it was worth asking the question about whether they have moved on. I'm getting the feeling that they have, but the proof will be in the pudding if the transfers come in quickly. And is that what could be holding things up? Are they agreeing on the transfer targets? Are they reading off the same page? I'd like to think they are, but sometimes that can hold things back. So anyhow, not really wanting to divulge on sort of relationships. Just wanted to keep that one in the back pocket for now. But ultimately, wanting to sign a player, yes. Do they want to sign him quickly? Yes. Do they want to get a couple of positions in? Yes. But these things are they've got to go through the political paperwork, and it's all got to be signed off, and it might take a little bit more time. But hopefully, by the time Newcastle are on that plane home to the UK after Saturday's game, then hopefully they're going to be in a much better place. And I think for Eddie Howe, that I going back to yesterday, I spoke to him and said, do you think it's going to be done before the Southampton game? And he kind of laughed a bit and said, yeah, well, I hope it will be, yeah. So I think there is things unfolding in the background. Is everything agreed? Probably not, but doesn't mean that things won't happen quickly, because everyone knows what Newcastle are about now and what money they can offer and things like that. So that's pretty much where it was. I guess the last segment of this podcast, Everything That's Black and White podcast, is probably going to be about the goalkeepers, because now Newcastle have got 5 senior goalkeepers on the books, and clearly they can't all remain at Newcastle. One of them's going to have to go, whether it's on loan or sold. You'd like to think that one of them will be sold. It's certainly not going to be the 2 new goalkeepers coming in. I would be amazed if it was Mark Gillespie, and it's certainly not going to be Nick Pope, who was fantastic tonight. So I think we know that Martin Dubravka is probably going to be the one who's looking for a new club, and I think, is he happy about it? Probably not. We haven't had a chance to speak to him yet. Whether we do get an opportunity on this trip, I would seriously doubt, because that's not the vibes Newcastle want to put up on this trip. They want to put up positive players who are speaking positive vibes. So I would be amazed if he would be the one who is not moved on this summer. And I've heard talk of Arsenal. There was talk of Celtic earlier in the summer. That didn't happen because he signed Kasper Schmeichel. So he's looking for a top flight club, of course. Maybe he can go somewhere in Europe. Could there be something in Saudi Arabia for him? One of the other leagues around the world? We don't know, but time is run out. It's now August the 1st. Well, it is here in Japan, August the 1st. So there's technically only 30 days left of the window. So, yeah, I think we need to get that one sorted. Personally, I think Newcastle needs to know where they stand, and that will bring in funds for someone else, of course, in another position. So something they need to sort. But signing off here tonight, still red hot here in Tokyo. Don't know if you've picked up that kind of vibe, but very, humid as well. So tomorrow I think there's going to be another fan event. I think Darren Eales could be meeting the supporters, so could there be opportunities to ask him questions on transfers? We'll have to wait and see. But sign off here tonight. Newcastle have won 4-1 here in Japan, continuing the pre-season in style, 3 wins out of 3. This has been Ryder speaking to you on the Everything is Black and White podcast.